Dare we understand you, man of God? Dare we walk in your way? Surely you know our griefs too well. You know our pain. Dare we share in your suffering, man of God? He will be raised and lifted up. He was despised. He was spurned by us. Surely he took up our frailties. Yes, he carried our sorrows. Dare we understand you, man of God? Dare we look upon you? Surely we see our ugliness, our sin in you. Dare we look to you, man of God? He was raised and has ascended. God shows us love, shows us love by this. While we were still enemies, yes, Christ has died for us. Dare we understand you, man of God? Dare we die with you? Surely you know death's bitterness, its scars on you. Dare we take our cross and follow you? It's about 25 years since I wrote that song. It sounds like it might be 25 years since I sang. A song in which I sought to reckon with the strangeness of this man of God, Jesus. And after 25 years, the me who wrote that song seems a little strange to me too. I was a student at Sydney University. I was getting ready to graduate with a BA. I had been a leading member of the equivalent of InterVarsity Fellowship. And this song expressed my unease with the cheap grace of an evangelical middle classism that sometimes seemed to give lip service to Jesus as Lord while evading the costs of becoming like him. Better to be nice and keep distance from the nasty, from those who could not be nice. Better that than to know our griefs and our pain, let alone those of the crucified. But the me who wrote this song was a little naive, I now think, a little innocent of history. For the better part of 25 years, I've studied history and theology. This apocalyptic preacher from Nazareth, who insistently but mistakenly believed that a divine kingdom of righteousness would, in his lifetime, drive out and destroy all evil from all the world. He's even stranger than I thought. His world and my world are, in many ways, worlds apart. He lived in a world in which he saw the armies of heaven at night maneuvering in the sky. I think they are stars. He lived in a world in which he fought demons who took possession of vulnerable people to do them harm. I suspect he had a marvelous and enviable talent for helping people with psycho and sociosomatic illnesses. And how strange must we look to Jesus if he were to come among us today? He who supposed history was ending with his generation. What would he make of our landing a space probe on a comet traveling at thousands of kilometers per hour, millions of kilometers from Earth? What would he make of our technical prowess in the diagnosis and treatment of neurological and other disorders? Could he begin to understand who we are? Who do you say that I am? Stranger. One of the reasons we dwell on this question, who do you say that I am, is that we have no real idea who Jesus said he was, if it matters. A little over a century ago, in his definitive Quest of the Historical Jesus, Albert Schweitzer concluded, Jesus as a concrete historical personality remains a stranger to our time. His conclusion has lost none of its bite. Schweitzer said more, though. I've cut him off in mid-sentence. So, let me be polite. He wrote, Jesus as a concrete historical personality remains a stranger to our time, but his spirit, which lies hidden in his words, is known in simplicity, and its influence is direct. And the closing paragraph of his essential study is justly famed. He comes to us as one unknown, without a name, as of old by the lakeside he came to those men who knew him not. He speaks to us the same word, follow me, and sets us to the tasks which he has to fulfill for our time. He commands. And to those who obey him, whether they be wise or simple, he will reveal himself in the toils, the conflicts, the sufferings which they shall pass through in his fellowship. And as an ineffable mystery, they shall learn in their own experience who he is. Schweitzer's lesson is clear. Jesus never called anyone to form a fan club. He called disciples to live as he lived. It seems to me, as best I can tell, that Jesus was pretty uncompromising about this. If Matthew's gospel is any reliable guide, Jesus could be forgiving, that he commanded nothing less than perfection in accordance with the Jewish Torah. He recognized no alternatives. So a stranger Jesus is to me here too. For I live in another world where, in spite of vicious fundamentalisms and ferocious religious violence, many of us suspect that there is not just one true religion. I've learned treasured lessons from neighbors of other faiths and none that I could not teach myself. So I feel at least a little quizzical about the many and various gods, not accepting my own. I won't go on in this way now, though I could and perhaps should, because for all his strangeness, I happen, by accident of birth and upbringing, and doubtless a dozen other reasons of which I am unaware, to be one of those people for whom this stranger seems at the same time to be the source of a power to overcome estrangement. He is, but of course in secret, God and my neighbor. Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? When was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." So while I do not wish to belong to a fan club for Jesus, I do hope to become a good enough disciple to live as he lived, so that I might know and love my neighbors as myself, and we might be strangers no more. But now, I fairly suck at it. Partly because I think I do understand something of where Jesus leads. And I have not overcome my middle classism enough to not be afraid. But there are some who go before us. For instance, also, it turns out, 25 years ago, just this past Sunday, in fact, 6 Jesuit priests who lived and taught at the Central American University in El Salvador, along with their housekeeper and her daughter, were murdered in the middle of the night. Next to them I have the pictures of 3 American nuns and a lay worker who were also murdered in El Salvador in 1980. They were murdered in the middle of the night by US-trained Salvadoran military forces, and their offense was to aid poor Salvadorans to defend their human rights in a situation of abusive inequality and savage civil war. Those men, Ignacio Echeverria, Ignacio Martin Barron, Segundo Montes, Juan Ramon Moreno, Joaquin Lopez y Lopez, and Armando Lopez, and the women, Elba and Selena Ramos. They understood that to live as Jesus lived means to take the crucified people down from the cross. But sometimes the Romans come for you too. Are we then disciples? Or are we content to pretend to be Romans? Dare we understand you, man of God? Dare we die with you? Surely you know death's bitterness, its scars on you. Dare we take our